On today's show, Egor Demin explodes for 23 points during the second half of the Nets' loss to the 76ers. Also, Danny Wolf plays the first extended minutes of his NBA career. I'll offer my top takeaways from both rookies' performances right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's show, we got bonus Locked On Nets. It is late Friday night, going into Saturday morning. Don't normally do a show, but I had to tonight because Nets fans have been clamoring for the rookies. Like, we all know what this season is about: draft position, rookie development, all that. And with that, fans have been clamoring more rookie minutes. They wanted it. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but they got their heaviest dose of the season during Friday's loss to the 76ers at Barclays Center. Egor Demin plays 30 minutes. Drake Powell gets minutes. And then Danny Wolf makes his real NBA debut, plays the first extended meaningful minutes of his NBA career. So I'm going to get into all that. But I got to focus on Egor Demin, who turns in his strangest and arguably most impressive game of the season in this one. Egor finishes with 23 points, which is a season high, but this was such a strange performance because Egor really looked terrible at the start of this game. He was pretty out of sync. He didn't look confident. He was scoreless on 0 of 3 shooting in the first half with 2 assists and 2 turnovers. He was losing the ball around half court. He didn't look like he was looking for his own shot. And it looked like, all right, like this is just a game that Egor doesn't have it. I tweeted it out in the first half, like really rough start for Egor. He doesn't look confident, and it is what it is. And then in the second half, he must have gotten a pep talk at halftime. He flipped some kind of a switch. I don't know what went into it. The Nets were down. Maybe desperation plays in a role in it. But then he comes out in the second half, and he looks like Luka Doncic or Steph Curry for stretches of the second half, and legitimately looked like the best player on the floor in the second half of this game, in a game that featured guys like Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes, some really high-level players, Paul George. Egor in the second half of this one scores all 23 of his points, season high in the second half. So 23 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 8 of 15 from the field, and 5 of 12 from 3 in the second half. And I'm going to get into like this specifically, what I liked about what he did on the court during that second half. But I want to start it because I think that this performance is just, it signifies some issues and then some really encouraging strengths of Egor. I'll start with the strengths, which is the confidence, mental toughness, mental fortitude, all those things that people call cliches, but there is importance and significance in them. And I think that you see that in a game like this. A game, like I said, Egor looked terrible in the first half. He did not look confident whatsoever. And his ability to shake that off, come out in the second half, and really almost will this Nets team back to a comeback. I mean, the Nets end up falling. I didn't even give you the score because I'm so focused on the rookie performances. But the Nets fall 115-103, but they fell behind by 20-plus points in this one, and they cut it to single digits late in the game. And that was really all Egor, just willing them back. But that mental toughness to be able to shake off a first-half performance like he had, stay confident, and come out and do the things that he did in the second half, I think that says a lot about him as a player, as a person, as a young man, teenager, whatever you want to call him. He's 19 years old. The ability to do that is really encouraging because in the NBA, in any pro sport, you got to have a short memory. I mean, like that's in the job description. If you don't have that, you're not going to excel. You're going to go into long slumps. You're going to have struggles with confidence. And Egor seems like a player, like we knew coming into the draft, he seemed like a guy who really had it between the ears. And that was a big part of what attracted the Nets to him during the pre-draft process. But I think you see it in a game like this. Really good attitude, really confident, and his ability and mental toughness to be able to shake off some of those early struggles, it really stuck out. And just talking about, what Egor did on the court in that second half, he was just so much more assertive, so much more confident, looking for his own shot, putting pressure on the defense. And the confidence as a shooter just really sticks out in that one because Egor's a guy that he does not care how many shots he misses. He's going to keep firing them up. Sometimes bad looks. He took some bad ones in this one, and he said after the game that I'd like to have a few of those back, but I would rather have a guy who's, struggling in the first half of a game, comes out and is willing to take some bad shots and just keep firing. Forcing it isn't great, but the ability or the confidence and the willingness to take shots and not be worried about missing, that is a breath of fresh air, especially for a Nets fan base that saw, their highest paid player be Ben Simmons in the last 3 seasons. To see a guy that'll come in and will put the ball up and not worry about missing, no matter how much he's struggling, that's really impressive. I said, Egor was scoreless on 0 of 3 shooting in the first half. He took 15 shots in the second half, was 7 of 15, most of them 3-pointers, but the confidence as a 3-point shooter, as I said, for any 3-point shooter, confidence is going to be huge. And Egor is confident, and he looks like a legitimate 3-point shooter. I mean, in this one, he finishes, what was he? Egor finishes 5 of 14 from 3, 5 of 12 in the second half. So that's like not a great number, but a lot of the misses look good. And I would say that overall, I think it's pretty clear through this is 14 game or 17 or 18 games that Egor's played. He looks like a high-level shooter. Like he's at 35% from 3 on nearly 9 attempts per 36 minutes at this point. And for a rookie and for a guy who shot 27% last year, that's really good. And a lot of the misses look good, and they did in this one. And the level of shooter that he is, you can see clearly that that's showing up on the scouting report. I mean, opposing defenders are closing out to Egor hard. I mean, how many pump fake sidestep threes have we seen from Egor thus far? I've seen more than a handful, in these first games, just because defenders are closing out really hard to him, and he's showing a really good understanding of when to get those defenders up in the air. And then he usually resets and takes another 3-point shot. Now, the next step is going to be turning those into drives. When you pump fake, you see an opening, not always settling for the 3, sometimes getting downhill, creating for yourself in the lane or creating for others when you see fit. So that's kind of the next step. But the fact that defenders are closing out this hard to him, the fact that that is clearly on the scouting report, the fact that he is this confident, all of that is a resounding positive. And on top of the 3-point shooting, Egor was 3 of 4 on 2s in the second half. So, we saw some really aggressive takes to the basket in the second half. I mean, 3 driving layups. Like we saw that in the first half of that Boston game. He had some really good drives in the first half there. But other than that, this was probably Egor's most aggressive half of the season going to the basket. And we saw, the 76ers defense was really selling out to try to stop Egor down the stretch of this game. And that was pretty apparent. I mean, they were putting 2 on the ball a lot. We were seeing, we saw a transition drive from Egor. We saw another one where he was kind of getting like a DHO on the left wing, and they put 2 defenders on him because they were so worried about him pulling up from 3 because he had just hit a few. And he kind of spun to his left baseline off of the double team, went down, went to the basket, scored like on a double pump layup at the rim. So that's just really encouraging stuff. All of that, the 3-point shooting, the willingness to get downhill in the second half. I think we're going to want to see a little bit more of a balance between those two things. But the confidence, it was all on full display. And it wasn't even just the offense. I mean, I said in the second half of this game, I mean, Egor had 8 rebounds in the second half of this one. So he was rebounding. The defense was really shaky out of the gate. I mean, there were some isolation possessions in the first half where Egor was on an island on Quentin Grimes and Tyrese Maxey, and he was, he looked like he was skating and Brian Park in some of these possessions in the first half. But the second half, I thought he really turned it around. I thought he looked a lot more engaged, and we're seeing the length really playing the second half. I mean, there were some transition defensive possessions, which is something that the Nets have struggled with in a big way. We saw Egor get a few strips and steals because he can dig down on some of these guys, and his length allows him to, get into some spots where other guys can't, just because he's this 6'9" guy, 6'10" wingspan, and he can do some of that stuff. I said, in the second half, he had a block and 2 steals. So that's all really positive. I think overall, just the impact that he had in the second half was apparent. He nearly willed this Nets team back to victory. And now the challenge for Egor is going to be to sustain it, because I talked to Jordan Fernandez about it after the game, and we've seen it with Egor. Like, we've seen him do it for stretches throughout the season, especially in terms of his offensive aggressiveness. A lot of that pertaining to him as a driver. Like, we've seen stretches where he looks really aggressive driving the ball, like in that Boston game. And then we see stretches where he looks like he's just a bystander and he doesn't want to press the issue. He doesn't want to get downhill. He doesn't want to do some of those things. And in this game, you saw that. And I think you just saw it overall. Like I said, in the first half, he takes 3 shots. He's really a bystander. He's not doing much. He's not pressing the issue. And then it takes the Nets getting down, and they have a little desperation. They don't have Michael Porter Jr. They don't have Cam Thomas. They don't really have these other guys to look to. And Egor feels desperate, and he flips the switch. And in the second half, he just completely does a 180 in terms of aggressiveness. And that's great. And this was overall a major positive for him to have, 23, 8, and 3 in the second half of a game on over 50% shooting. Like, that's awesome. but we're going to need to see him sustain it and do it for 4 quarters. Like the aggressiveness, it can't come and go. And like, that's part of being a rookie. It's not that worrisome to me. Like it's part of, being a 19-year-old playing in the NBA and being a starting point guard. Like that's going to happen, but you want to see him at least try throughout full stretches of games instead of it being like, I'm going really hard and I feel really comfortable for these, these 15 minutes in a first half of a game or these 15 minutes in the second half of the game. No, you got to see it. You got to see it the whole game. It might look ugly at some points. You might not always be the most confident, but you need to press the issue. You need to be assertive, especially if you're going to be a guy who has the ball in his hands this much. So sustaining it, that's something that Jordy Fernandez talks about with all of these Nets players, the ability to sustain the effort, the engagement, the focus, all of that. That's huge for Egor, and I'm going to want to see an improvement from that moving forward. But overall, in a game where this looked really ugly at the start, it turns out being a resounding positive, and Egor's probably his best performance of the season. So really encouraging stuff from him there. But Danny Wolf, another Nets rookie, who Nets fans have been calling for. They want to see the Wolf, unleash the Wolf, free the Wolf. I keep hearing all that stuff, and the Nets fans got it, albeit in a small sample size. But Danny plays his first meaningful minutes of his NBA career tonight. What did I see from him? How should fans be looking at him moving forward? I'll get into all that when I close out this bonus episode of Locked On Nets after a quick break. The NBA is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want. So DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double OT fuel-ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off, up to $10 a day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Coming back from the break, closing out today's bonus episode of Locked On Nets, hitting on Brooklyn's loss to the Philadelphia 76ers on Friday at Barclays Center, and focusing on the rookies, because that's what everyone wants to hear about. Egor Demin's big performance, hit on all that. And now Danny Wolf plays the first extended minutes. Really, this is effectively Danny's NBA debut, and he plays 13 minutes in this game. He didn't come in until midway through the second quarter, but he plays, most of the second half of the second quarter and then played extended minutes in the second half. And he finishes 5 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 0 turnovers, 0 of 2 from the field, but 5 of 6 from the free throw line. And he was a team best +6 in 13 minutes. So that's won his minutes overall, which is a really, really resounding positive. And then you look at Danny's performance, and look, nothing like crazy. Didn't make a field goal, but I would say overall that this was a solid debut for Danny Wolf. I feel like he looked solid. He did not look out of place. He did not look overwhelmed, which is impressive for a player who has yet to play significant NBA minutes and has really just been in the G League, and you're kind of bouncing between, Long Island and Brooklyn, and he comes up for this one. And I asked him after the game, did you know that this was the game that you were going to get your first NBA minutes? And he said, no. He said, MPJ was out, so I had an idea that it was a possibility. But MPJ and Day'Ron Sharpe had been out in prior games, and Danny did not get extended NBA minutes despite being up with Brooklyn. So tonight he gets it, and he said, it's a stay-ready mindset. You just got to try to stay ready, and you don't always know what that entails, but he was trying to do it, and he did it, and he got in. And he said that, after the game I asked Danny, and he said, I felt like, I was a little like, oh, like wide-eyed in the beginning of the game. This is my first real NBA minutes. I'm just trying to see how I fit in. And then he said he felt as the second half progressed and as he got deeper into the game, he started to feel more confident. He started to feel like himself. And that's what I think I saw. You really saw it as the game progressed. You started to see little flashes here and there of some of the things that Danny Wolf can do. But overall, like, you look at it and there were no glaring mistakes. And I think you saw glimpses of some of the strengths that Danny has. I mean, you talk about the offensive ability and what he does. Like, this is a guy that has that versatility. He can be a legit dribble, pass, shoot threat. We did not see all of that in this game, but you did see flashes of it. Like, you see just the way that Danny can see the court and process the court. It's a little bit different than some of the other guys, especially some of the other big men. Like, he makes some passes that other guys don't see, whether it's just an extra pass, whether it's a cross-court pass, off of a drive or off of a post-up or some of those things. Also, his transition ball handling, we saw a flash of that where he got a rebound and he's able to push the ball in the break and run the floor with Drake Powell, and he ends up hitting a little shovel pass to Drake Powell, and Drake gets to the free throw line. So you saw some of that stuff. And then in the second half, you started to see him try to reach into his bag a little bit. Like, we saw one drive where he pump fake, he drove, he tried to go to like an up and under around the rim, he gets fouled, he goes to the free throw line. We saw another drive where he pump fake on the left wing, he drove down, he spun back to the middle and had like a little finger roll near the front of the rim, but he missed it. But a good move. So you're seeing some of the flashes. He didn't end up making a field goal, but he made the right play. Like, one turnover in 13 minutes, I thought that was a positive because we've seen Danny in some of the games with Long Island struggle. Like, he had an 8-turnover game down there. I think he's averaging around like 3.3 assists to 3.5 turnovers, so negative assist to turnover down there. Now, given he has the ball in his hands way more than he does in a game like this where he's playing up with Brooklyn. So it's going to look different. But he had the ball in his hands a little bit in the second half, and he took care of it, and he made some good passes, and he had some nice takes to the rim that he didn't ultimately end up converting. But I think that all of that was positive. I think you're seeing, if you watch Danny's G League tape, you see that he's legitimately a guy who can be a floor spacer. Like, he's taking a lot of threes there. He has the driving ability, which we all know was a major strength of his. And then he also has the ability to run inverted pick and roll and do some of all that stuff. And he didn't get to do it tonight because he was playing large stretches of this alongside one of the Nets centers, whether Nick Claxton or Day'Ron Sharpe, and Noah Clowney. So Danny was effectively playing the wing for a lot of this game, which, I think speaks kind of to how crowded the rotation is. And it's kind of tough for the Nets to find minutes for Danny Wolf, at the center position or at power forward, because they have three guys in this one, in Nick Claxton, Day'Ron Sharpe, and Noah Clowney, who are all available. But I think it was pretty impressive that, Danny didn't look overwhelmed. He didn't look too out of place while pretty much playing the wing for most of this game. Like, he was playing alongside a center and a power forward, which is something that he hasn't really done throughout his basketball career. I mean, he played alongside a big at Michigan, but playing alongside two bigs, hasn't done that much. And I think you saw, he said that he, was a little less comfortable in the beginning of the game, and then he got more comfortable towards the end. He's finally started to feel like himself. And I don't think it's a coincidence that in the beginning of the game, he was playing alongside, Nick Claxton or Day'Ron Sharpe and Noah Clowney. And at the end of the game, he was playing alongside just Claxton or Sharpe. So he was playing at the power forward. And I've said, I think that, Danny, I wouldn't put him in a box in terms of being a center or a power forward, but I think that the more you can space the floor around him, the more interesting it's going to be. And I think that ultimately, I think he's going to be a center. I think that there's questions about how does that work out because, he's not a rim protector. What does it look like on defense? And I think ultimately he'll be able to play both, but he's going to have defensive questions at both spots in terms of, can he play center for extended stretches because he's not a rim protector? Can he play power forward or the wing for extended stretches? Because, is he going to be able to guard on the perimeter? And I think that the defense, I actually think, looked like a positive in this one. I mean, I thought that Danny, for the most part, like, he didn't do anything that great, but he moved well on defense. Like, you saw the Nets in this game as the game progressed because they were trying to come back from a big deficit. You saw them trapping the ball at half court and then kind of scram switching and rotating on the back end, which is something that they do a lot. And Danny didn't make any like standout plays, but I think that he was able to do that and recover and be in the right spots consistently. And I think that he looked, he looked fairly good. Like, he looked fairly graceful moving out there defensively. And that has been a struggle in the G League at points. So it was only 13 minutes, but the defensive end of the floor, I think it looked good. And the offensive end of the floor, I think you saw some of the flashes. I mean, he got to the line 6 times. He had some nice passes. He had some nice takes to the rim that he didn't end up converting. But ultimately, for a player who has yet to play extended NBA minutes, just getting thrown into it in this one and playing a role that he really hasn't played before, him looking comfortable and him looking like not out of place for making any glaring mistakes and having an impact on the game. I mean, I said he was a team best +6, so the Nets won his minutes more than any other player on the team. I think all of that is a resounding positive, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Nets navigate this with him moving forward because, as I said, they have a crowded front court rotation. Like they have Nick Claxton, Day'Ron Sharpe, Noah Clowney, Michael Porter Jr., and if MPJ is in this game, you really don't even know like where Danny's minutes are coming from. So Danny's a guy who I've said the Nets are going to want to play him in the G League, kind of mine some data about whether he's a power forward or a center, get him comfortable down there, all of that stuff. But he's 21 years old. He's not 19 like Egor Demin or any of these other Nets rookie first-round picks. The clock is accelerating. And I said, like, Noah Clowney played in the G League his whole rookie season. He was kind of that tweener between a center and a power forward. And the Nets used that whole season almost to determine what he was going to be, in the G League by playing him mostly at center, saying, okay, he's not a center. But with Danny, Noah was 19 when he was doing that. Danny's 21. So the clock is, pushed forward and expedited a little bit with him. So I think you're going to want to see Danny getting NBA minutes up with the Nets, sooner rather than later. And I think he's going to go back to the G League. But how do the Nets manage that as we get towards the trade deadline? I mean, you have guys in Nick Claxton, in Day'Ron Sharpe, who can be tradable, are going to be trade candidates. Does Danny Wolf factor into that conversation? How do they free minutes up for him? That will be a main storyline to monitor as the year progresses. But he's a guy who I think should be getting NBA minutes sooner rather than later, at least in the second half of the year. And I think once he gets up here and once you have him playing consistently, I think you're going to see some really exciting stuff from him because he is probably the most exciting draft pick that the Nets made in terms of some of the NBA-ready skills that he has in the ball handling, the passing, some of that stuff relative to some of these other guys who are 2 years younger than him. So I'm excited to see how the Nets handle that, and I think fans are going to be clamoring for some more Wolf minutes as we move forward. But it was nice to see him get on the floor tonight. That's all I got for you guys on this bonus episode of Locked On Nets. If you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take a second right now, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. But the Nets are back in Milwaukee on Saturday night, and then they're coming back to Barclays Center on Monday. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back on Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.